Hey everybody, I'm Caitlin, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about how to break down a project into step-by-step tasks using a real-world example of planning a trip, specifically a trip this summer to Italy. So if the idea of planning a vacation gives you a lot of anxiety instead of excitement, then you, my friend, are in the right place. I happen to plan a lot of trips. I love to travel with my husband. We're on the go a lot. And I have curated a process that really works for us. And it helps take away kind of that frozen, overwhelming fear of how to actually book a trip and complete it. So let's move over into OneNote, which is my digital note-taking app that I use. And we are going to break this huge project of planning a trip to Italy down into 5 steps and all of the tasks within those steps. So let's go. Okay, so here we are in OneNote. I have put the project up here, Summer Trip 2025. So this project, we're planning the trip. And I have 5 steps that I use for any trip that I plan. The first is starting with the destination and the dates. Then we'll move into travel, then itinerary, then important stuff, and then the packing list. So first, let's start with the date and destination. So we have decided to go to Italy July 10th through July 20th. Now, Italy obviously is a country filled with lots of different destinations and things to do. So first we have to narrow it down. Okay, so we're going to Italy, amazing, but where in Italy? And we have narrowed it down to Rome, Florence, and Naples. Also, just as an aside, we're not actually going to Italy this summer, although I wish we were. We have a lot of friends who are. So I'm hoping to manifest this trip for some time in our future because I really want to go to Italy. All right, coming back. So Rome, Florence, and Naples, right? Like those would be the ideal destinations. The next thing that I always like to do is how am I getting first off to the destination, and then once we're there, are we doing any travel while we're there, and what does that look like? So I know because we're going to Italy and we live in the United States that I'm going to need to research some flights just to get us to and back from going to Italy. And then because we are moving within the country itself, I'm going to need to do some research on how are we going to get from all these different places to the next destination. Is it going to be driving a car, renting a car, hiring a driver? Are there trains? Is it flying? I'm not really sure. So I'm putting that on my task list here, right? So I would consider this entire thing a task list broken down by steps. So project, steps, and then tasks within those steps. Lots of different ways to do it. This is just the way that works for me. Okay, so I'm going to need to research car rentals. I'm going to need to research, all sorts of things for traveling within Italy. So that goes here. So next up, which is kind of in tandem with the travel, is I need to know our itinerary. So I'm going to pull up the calendar, July 2025, the 10th through the following Sunday, which would be over here. And I'm going to want to, look at the flights and start understanding, what time would we leave on Thursday? Would it be an overnight? Would we get there Friday? And start really getting specific on, travel. Oops, excuse me. I think I have a travel calendar here. Let's see. I do. Amazing. So I would probably block the entire day of Thursday and probably Friday as well, and just add travel. Now, as I gain more understanding of what specific travel I'm doing, I would put it in here. For example, I would specify, Uber ride to the airport here. Then I would put flight to Rome, here, maybe into the next morning. Then I would put, car to hotel here. But for right now, I'm just going to do travel. And the same is I will probably go in on the back end and just add it right now, travel. And I'm also going to assume that on Sunday, it will all be travel as well. And again, once I actually book all of this, I'm going to specify exactly what we're doing at which time. Okay, so now what this tells me is we've really got half a Friday into the following Friday to work with. So at this stage, I'm probably going to think about how many days do we want to actually spend in Rome, and how many days do we want to spend in Florence and in Naples. And I don't have to make a firm decision. It'll be based on, again, our itinerary, what we want to do. But I want to keep in mind that I have about 7 days, right? So I could say, okay, 2 days in each place, just as a quick, or 1 day in Rome, on the front end and the back end, given we're flying in and out of Rome. So this could be Rome here and Rome Friday. So actually, why don't we just go ahead and say Rome? Just so I can have it in mind. And I will say Rome here as well. Awesome. So now we have 6 days to work with. Okay. So we can start thinking a little bit more about the itinerary. Okay, so we're in Rome for 2-3 nights. We're in Florence, 2-3 nights. Naples, 2-3 nights. What kind of hotels and lodging do we want to do? What is our budget? Which I actually kind of forgot to include that. Usually I do a budget right up here. So choose budget. And based on the budget, we can do any sort of hotel and lodging that fits that, right? Taking into account whatever we have allocated here. What do we want to do? Where do we want to eat? Do we want any days completely off? I always think it's kind of nice when traveling a huge trip, internationally like this, to just have 1 day where there's nothing scheduled. A day to just kind of fill up as you need. Maybe it's lounging at the pool at the hotel, or maybe it's just aimlessly walking through a village. I think that can be a really special, sometimes the best days on a trip where there's nothing planned or scheduled. Okay, so once you kind of better understand the dates, where you're going to be and how you're getting to and from those areas, you then have a better idea of how much time you have to actually plan various excursions, dinners, things like that. And again, this comes down to personal preference as well, because my husband and I, we are planners, and I love knowing how much time I have allocated to take a pasta making course or to rent bikes for a full afternoon and, go see the countryside. I actually find that makes my vacation much more relaxing when we have things booked ahead of time. And then of course, when you have that flexible day, it also doesn't feel like everything is booked to the minute, right? There's flexibility scheduled in. So it really makes for a nice balance. Any fancy restaurants I have found, it's helpful to book way in advance when you're going to places like Italy, where there might be, months booked in advance for certain restaurants and such. So reserving that, museums, sightseeing tours, etc., etc. So these are kind of the guts of planning the trip itself. And then I always have like an important step. So especially for international travel, looking at passport expirations, are visas required? Are any specific vaccines required? Making sure that we both schedule time off of work. Do we want or need travel insurance? Making sure our banks know we're traveling. Do we need to apply for a driving permit if we're renting a car? Checking our phone plan. We have international, but you never know, things change. And there can be many more things under this. But this is where I put kind of all of those like important things that need to happen in order to make the trip go smoothly. And then last but not least is the packing list. So the way I do packing lists, I actually, and I don't have them prepped for this video, but if you would like me to do a video on it, just leave a comment below. I have probably 7 different packing lists that I always have ready in my OneNote and another notebook on the side here. so that it's a template for me. I have one for when I travel up to Wisconsin in the winter, when I travel up to Wisconsin in the summer. Same for North Carolina, New Hampshire, places that my husband and I go to frequently in different temperatures. I have beach vacation template. I have snow vacation template, right? So that way, when I am ready to pack for a trip, I can just go back to the template. I don't have to start from ground zero, and I know which outfits I want to pack and shoes and toiletries, etc., etc. And it just makes the packing experience so much smoother. And I also have a pretty good idea, smoother. Saying smoother was not very smooth, my bad. But I also have a really good idea of about how long it takes me to pack for most trips. And it's an embarrassingly long amount of time. My husband can pack in like an hour. Usually for me, it's like closer to 2 to 3 hours, but whatever. So I will I will build in time for packing a few days before, usually depending on the work week and what it looks like. So for Italy, there's no way I would ever pack the night before. That would make me super anxious. I would probably see what my client work looks like or my workload and do a little bit each of these nights, right? And then toiletries last minute here. So this is what it looks like for me when I'm taking a big project like planning a summer trip, and I'm breaking it down into multiple steps with all of the tasks. You will also notice that throughout this planning process and task process, I was listing those tasks out on my calendar. And I think this is an element where a lot of people, it's why it's so overwhelming to complete these big projects with multi-steps, with lots of tasks, is because they get lost in, when am I going to do this? Where does it fit? And a lot of people overestimate, especially for traveling, how much they can actually do. And then trips end up being super anxiety ridden, not relaxing, and it's not necessary. It's simply doing this step of it, right? Putting all of the travel onto the calendar. If you're going to be traveling from 8 to noon and you have 4 things booked for the day, that's a packed day, right? But when you understand, wow, I'm not going to be able to do anything from 8 to 12 because we're going to be on a plane or a train, and then it's going to be an hour to our Airbnb, another hour to check in and get settled, maybe another hour to get to where we want to go, we're really looking at just a few hours in the evening because half that day was travel, right? When you really start to break down the tasks and put them into the calendar for when you're going to do them, that is when things start changing for people with navigating tasks and completing big projects. All right, well, that is what I have for you today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And just a quick note, if you are like, hey, I noticed, Caitlin, that you are using a digital notebook throughout this video, that was not just for show. This is OneNote, and it is my go-to for capturing all of my thoughts, all of my notes, and generally keeping my brain from spilling all over the place. So if you are curious about setting up a digital notebook of your own, or you've tried before and still ended up with 47 random tabs and a lonely grocery list and 18,000 sticky notes, my next playlist is all about how to create and use a digital notebook to organize your life with way less chaos and way more calm. And I will walk you through mine. So this is a template one, but I will walk you through the desktop version, which I use. And I use it for everything. My business, my personal life, just keeping track of random thoughts, all of it. This is the foundation for all of my note keeping. I journal in here, everything. I'm obsessed. I love OneNote. So come on over and we'll see you in the next video, in the next playlist. And as always, until then, happy organizing, my friend, and safe travels.